Hi, this is Travis from flipwebsites.com, and today's video is all about step one of the due diligence process when buying websites, checking ownership of a website. When you buy a website, the first step of the due diligence process is doing some basic checks on the owner of the website and on the domain itself. If there are any red flags during this stage, it's probably best you walk away from the deal entirely. At the very least, you're going to want to address any concerns that you uncover during this stage before proceeding to the next steps of the process. So let's get started with the first step, and that is checking the ownership of a website. And we're going to do this by doing a simple Whois search. And the Whois is a database of all the domains that have been registered online. And the tool I recommend is Domain Tools. So let's go ahead and take a look at that tool. And the URL is whois.domaintools.com. Now, you can do some free searches on this site, but they also offer a paid membership that allows you to dig up more detailed information that you can't get on the free side. In most cases, you're going to be able to do your due diligence just fine using the free tools available here. But if you buy websites on a regular basis, or if you're looking to buy a particularly expensive website, and you want to just be absolutely sure that you've checked everything out, then it might be worth the membership. I think it's like $15 or $16 a month, so you could do like a 1-month membership if you were just checking out, one website because you were doing a very expensive website purchase. But again, for the most part, you're going to get by with the free tools. What you're going to do here is you're going to enter the name of the domain of the website you're looking to buy to get some of the cursory information that we're going to get here in step one. But before we do that, we need to find a website we're going to buy. So let's go over to Flippa.com. This is the largest marketplace for people buying and selling websites. And this is typically where I buy and sell my websites. So we'll come here and we'll just look at the featured listings here on the home page, and we'll just kind of browse through the listings here, see if anything looks interesting. Insurance directory. Now I have a background in real estate, so this one looks somewhat interesting. So let's just say I read through this and I decide, you know what, this is something that I might be interested in purchasing. So the first step then in the due diligence process is coming over here and entering that domain. So that's South Florida Commercial Properties.com. And the first thing I want to do is I want to confirm that the registration date matches what's on the listing. If I go back to the listing, it says that it was established right here on January 12, 2008. And if I look over on the Whois, and it does say that it was created on January 12, 2008, so that checks out. I also see that it expires in 2011 and that it was just recently updated in 2010. Obviously, the owner probably renewed it. And then the next thing I want to look for now is the registrant information, in other words, the owner of the domain, and that information is here. Now, we got lucky because this particular person has a public registration where all of his contact information is public. But it's very common for domain owners to do what's called a private registration. And when they do that, all this information is just blocked out. You don't see any of their like their address or their telephone numbers or anything. Now that's very common. So if you see that, don't think that the owner's trying to hide something or something shady is going on. It just a lot of domain owners do private registration because they don't want people spamming them or sending them, junk mail or whatever, or contacting them about buying their website or whatever the case might be. So it's very common to see private or public registrations. Either one is going to be what you're going to find, obviously. Now, but I'll just make a note of this because if I was buying directly from a buyer, outside of Flippa, let's say it was a private transaction, and the seller gave me their information, I could confirm right here then that it's in fact, I'm dealing with the owner and that everything matches up. Now, when I'm dealing with Flippa, they don't have seller information. All they have is the seller's username, which here this guy uses lead generator 8, and I don't see anywhere in here. I looked at his comments. He doesn't use his name Greg. He doesn't use it anywhere here, so I don't know for sure that it's the same guy, but I mean, chances are that if he's selling it here, and there's no indication in his listing here that indicates, as I'm just looking through here, that indicates he's selling on behalf of someone else or anything like that. So I assume that he is in fact Greg Weiss, but I'm going to confirm that here in just a moment. So, but we're just going to make a note of his name. The next thing I'm looking for, and this is the next step in the process, is we're checking the registrar history and the domain status. And if we look right here, we see the registrar history. It just says one registrar. All that means is that the domain has only been with one registrar. But if I saw more than one, I would just make a note of it. I'm not concerned about it at all. But I just want to make a note of it because if there's more than one, there is a very small chance that the domain might not be able to be transferred, because what happens is when domains get transferred from one registrar to another, it goes into a 60-day holding period, if you will, where it can't be transferred. So let's say the domain was with GoDaddy.com, and this particular guy, let's say Greg, bought it, and he has an account with Namecheap, so he had it transferred to Namecheap.com. In that case, we'd see two registrars here, and if that happened recently, that transaction or that transfer, there could be that 60-day holding period, okay? And all I want to do is make a note of that if that was the case, because if I were to actually go buy the website, I just want to confirm with the seller that it's not in that 60-day holding period and that there aren't going to be any issues getting the domain transferred. So I just want to confirm that with the seller. The other thing we're looking at is the domain status. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that the domain is locked. Now, every Whois tool, and there are several of them online, the layout is just slightly different, where right on here you'll see it'll say domain status and it will say locked. Now, this particular tool, if you go to the registration tab, if you look under registrar status, and if we go to server stats, here's the domain status. It says it's registered and an active website. Now, if I go back to this registration tab, though, I see all this stuff here. It says it's prohibited. Now, this tells me the fact that it's transfer prohibited, update prohibited. This just means that the domain is locked, okay? And what that means is, as a way of protecting domain owners, registrars by default set the domains to locked status. And what that means is the domain owner can't transfer the domain until they unlock it first. And the reason that protection is put in place so that domains don't inadvertently get transferred. And so all that means is that if you were to buy this website, the seller is going to have to unlock the domain first and then transfer it. And that's an instant process. It's not a big deal. It's, total, protocol, total standard process or standard procedure. So just nothing to worry about, but just something to know. Again, 9 times out of 10, the domains are going to be locked. And again, that's a good thing, because you don't want, if you're an owner of a domain, you don't want it inadvertently transferred somehow. So that's what that means. And the only reason I note it is I'm just curious if it's locked or not. Because if it's locked, again, which 9 times out of 10 it will be, I'll know that the seller has to unlock it first. And if I'm dealing with an inexperienced seller, I might have to just walk them through the process and let them know, hey, you have to unlock this first before you transfer it over to me. So that concludes the first 2 steps of step 1 in this video. In the next video, we'll talk about trademark ownership considerations and checking on the owner himself. And that will then conclude the first step of the due diligence process.